Hello. As folks settle in a bit, happy to introduce our next speaker. She is a lead technical writer at Klaviyo, where she supports the team documenting the marketing application pillar of the business. Outside of work, she's an avid gardener, sewer, and serial hobbyist who has never met a craft she didn't want to try. She lives in Indianapolis with her partner and two dogs, Petunia and Charlie. Elise Davis, scaling a unicorn, how to mature your documentation program and support a changing business. Elise, welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I am truly so honored to share the stage with so many smart people. I am here representing the cryptozoology contingent. We learned about krakens yesterday, unicorns today. But we're not talking about mythological unicorns. We are talking about tech unicorns today. In other words, a tech startup with a valuation of $1 billion, with a B, dollars or more. And more specifically, how to scale an organization that is a unicorn or an organization that's growing really quickly into a mature corporation, and all of the docs changes and processes and just everything that has to change with your docs program alongside a business that is pivoting and where nothing's the same sort of day to day, week to week, month to month. My name is Elise Davis. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a lead tech writer at Klaviyo who has recently gone through this transition. They were founded in 2012 as a data management company, then pivoted to focus on email marketing, especially email marketing with an emphasis on personalization and really targeting your messages to your users or your recipients. And then raised seed, Series A and Series B rounds from like 2015 to 2019-ish. Through that period, we didn't have a public valuation. The world didn't know exactly what we were worth to investors. And then in 2019, I joined, which is obviously a huge milestone for the company. In 2020, they raised their Series C round, and that was the first public valuation we had. That was $4 billion. And so the world kind of knew at this point that we had hit that unicorn status. In 2021, we added our second product, SMS. I won't get too much into the details of the products that we sell, but I'm more focused on what it's like to move from a one-product company to a two-product company and then beyond. In 2022, the company's big focus was prepping for the extra scrutiny that would come with being a public organization. They had ambitions to IPO and become public, but knew that there would just be a lot more eyeballs on us at that point, and so we wanted to prep and make sure that we could handle all of the extra scrutiny that would come our way. And then in 23, we successfully did IPO. We also launched our third and fourth products that year, and then kept moving into 24 and 25 with 2 more products, bringing us to a total of 6 that we're selling today. So I tell you all that about our organization just so you sort of have an idea of the scale and the scope of the work that tech writers are supporting. And I want to dive into what that looked like for tech writers, like how we had to change alongside all of those other organizational changes. And at a really high level, as we moved from that startup phase to the corporation phase, we had to learn how to prioritize really well. We had to move from being scrappy and helping with anything and everything to really knowing what was important and focusing on that. So back to 2019, around when I joined, when we were a startup, but had really big ambitions. So no one knew exactly what we were worth at this point, but we were starting to gain some buzz, starting to get some traction from the sort of high-level investors who are investing in companies before they're public. We had 3 tech writers at that point, about 350 total employees. And at that point, everything we did was scrappy. We were figuring it out as we went along. Tech writers did so much more than just tech writing. We were doing documentation, but we were also doing new hire onboarding. We wrote for the blog. We helped with marketing. We jumped into support queues when needed. We helped with product strategy. We wore so many different hats. And here's kind of what an average day might have looked like for a tech writer. You get in the morning, you prioritize with your manager, and then you're jumping straight into that new hire onboarding session where you're working with brand new hires to make sure that they are ready to go and know how to talk about Klaviyo intelligently, understand sort of like market concepts. From there, you get a little bit of focus time to do the work that you were hired for of writing and editing and publishing, everything to do with actually getting documentation out in the world. Then you get a little break for lunch before you have a working session with one of your product managers to offer feedback on something that's in development, where you're really getting into the nitty-gritty of content design and how customers are going to work with this, what their pain points might be, how we can maybe avoid those pain points. So you're really integrated into the product development process. Then you get a little bit more time on your own to finalize a presentation that you're sharing with the whole organization, where you're presenting with another product manager to train the whole org on a brand new feature that just launched. Make sure everyone from sales to support and beyond knows how to talk about that feature intelligently, knows how to position it the right way. After that, you get a little bit more focused time to work on some video content where you're writing a script, you're recording, you're sort of the talking head, teaching people how to do things. You hand that video off to our video producers, and then you get to go home satisfied in a solid day of work wearing maybe 6 of your several dozen hats that you wear. This made sense for the phase that we were at, but it began to get a little bit overwhelming, and we had to figure out how we were going to pare our work down and keep it manageable so that we could continue producing at a high quality. One of the things that we did to focus our work a little bit was getting rid of a whole category of documentation. We had FAQs, up to 300 at their peak, and these were micro docs that we wrote in close collaboration with our support team whenever we realized that there was a question that lots and lots of people were asking. We wanted to be able to point them somewhere, maybe let them self-serve, and if not, give our support reps a link that they can share that makes it easier to answer that specific question, walk someone through a specific use case, rather than digging through longer docs to look to understand something that's maybe like a little nuanced. But because there were so many of these, they were easy to write but very hard to maintain. As features changed, as designs changed, there were screenshots and processes that became out of date, and we had to audit all of these every time. And for our small 3-tech writer team, it was just becoming too unwieldy. So we decided to hand all of this content off to the brand new community forum team. They were working on creating a community forum where folks can interact, answer each other's questions, but there just wasn't much happening. They didn't have content, and so new users would come and hear crickets and leave. But this content was pretty easy to turn into a sort of like pseudo community post. So we worked with that team to convert all of these into community forum posts. Benefited us because we don't have to maintain them anymore. Benefited community because they got all this free content that they didn't have to develop themselves. And our customers had really reasonable expectations about this content too, because it was time-stamped. So if they're reading in 2022, but they see that it was published in 2019, they can make some assumptions about how the product might have changed, and they won't expect the screenshots to maybe exactly match what's in the app today. So overall, this was a win for everyone, and it let us reduce our work and allowed us to focus on the things that we were maintaining with a higher level of quality. Fast forwarding a little bit to 2021, when we added our second product. This was a huge expansion of the organization and all the things we supported, also a huge expansion of docs. And we had to figure out how to support all of this brand new documentation and also continue to maintain it with still a pretty tight team. We had 6 tech writers at that point and a staff of about 1,600. So you can see pretty rapid growth from 350 staff in 2019 to well over 1,000 at this point. So at this point, we have to learn to strengthen our prioritization muscle. We have to figure out what's important, what's necessary, and what balls we can maybe drop or hand off to other teams. One of the ways that we handed off control was we stopped managing our own front-end code. In the startup phase, we were really focused on making things work, maybe to the detriment of quality code. So one of those processes that we had sort of scrappily figured out when we needed it in a pinch and then never looked at again was our redirects process. So when there's something like all of those community forum posts, or all of the FAQs getting turned into community forum posts, we don't want those old FAQ docs to 404. And so we needed to redirect them to the new community forum post. We needed to redirect lots of content all the time whenever there was like an adjustment or something got deprecated. So this scrappy little piece of JavaScript that someone wrote deep in the history of Klaviyo would look at what page a user was on and see if it was in list number 1. And if they were on a page that was in list number 1, they would go look for the URL that's at the same position in list number 2 and then send them there. This is not good code. And it broke. Not often, but sometimes it broke. And if we were ever trying to clean things up or rearrange things, if you got one link wrong in one list, then everything underneath it was wrong too. So it was kind of a nightmare to maintain. So we rightfully handed this off to actual front-end developers who could create a clean, stronger system that was less likely to break. There was absolutely friction to this, though, because when we owned the process, we could do it right when we needed it. But when someone else owns the process, we have to give them the time to actually follow through after we request something. They don't think that this is an emergency. Rightfully so, they've got other emergencies to handle. And so we needed to make sure to give them at least like a day or two to process our request before something actually needed to be live. That was like a real slowdown from our really scrappy startup phase when we were just doing everything on a dime and turning things around quickly, to this like sort of higher level of maturity. And it definitely took some there was pushback, including from me. I didn't love that I had to wait for someone else. But this was absolutely better for our docs, for the organization as a whole, for the reliability. Our customers could just rely on things not breaking and a bunch of tech writers trying to figure out how to fix this code anymore. At the same time that we were handing off things that we maybe shouldn't have owned to begin with, we were keeping the auxiliary tasks that still really mattered to us. One of those volunteer roles that we maintained, even though it wasn't part of our job description, was being really integrated into the product development process and providing feedback and content design support as products were getting developed. There were a couple reasons that we held on to this. One, product managers really valued our opinion. We gave good feedback. We were able to prevent issues before they actually became issues. And so they looped us in earlier and more often, and it happened less frequently that we were surprised by a release that we didn't know was coming. So huge benefit for us. It also benefited our customers because we made the product better. And that's who we serve at the end of the day, is our customers. And so we were willing to hold on to this, even if it was kind of volunteer work, because we knew that it made their experience better. The reason that we were able to hold on to that is because we had a lot of respect throughout the organization. Because our team was made up of really smart experts. I love my team. They know so much. They're so smart. And that's not the kind of thing that you can just have overnight. You have to develop it and cultivate it. There are a couple of ways that we have chosen to cultivate that. We have really low turnover, which I love because all of my coworkers who I love stick around. One of those ways that we've turned them into experts is by hiring internally. We poach support and sales reps and then turn them into tech writers. So they already know our product really, really well. And we don't have to bring them up to speed on how all of these different parts of the product interact. We've also created really clear career architecture. So you can move from a junior tech writer into a senior role, a senior lead. Wherever you are on the ladder, there's somewhere that you can aspire to, and you don't have to jump ship to a different team or move into management if you want to grow your career as a tech writer. We also give our individual contributors a lot of leeway to pursue projects that they think will improve the customer experience or our processes. There's just a lot of encouragement for seeing things that seem a little bit broken and finding a way to fix them, which I've gotten so much job satisfaction out of. But I think one of the most important things that we've used to keep our turnover really low is an ownership-based model where everyone has both individual responsibility for the areas that they own, but also has the freedom to manage them in the way that they see fit. There's not a lot of micromanaging or oversight or looking at the specific ways that people are spending their time. As long as they're producing good results, they're able to sort of manage their day as they see fit, which I find so invaluable. All right, fast forwarding again to 2023 when we successfully IPO'd. This is me at the New York Stock Exchange. Pretty fun, cool day for me to hear the bell rung the day that we went public. Also, obviously, a big pivotal point for Klaviyo. At this point, we weren't just beholden to our customers. We obviously have been very committed to taking their feedback and improving the product for them for years and years. We have experience there. But now we were also beholden to investors, and they also were really concerned about our quality of work and making sure that things were right every time, and that our documentation is accurate and updated on time when new stuff drops. So just because the expectations were higher, we had to get better at meeting them. We had to make sure that we were getting things right the first time, every time. There was much lower tolerance for mistakes or missing content for a little while because there were just more people paying attention to it. So at this point, our focus had to get really, really tight. We needed to operate as a mature organization within a mature organization. One of the ways that we did that was by deflattening our ownership model a little bit. And I know I was just talking about how great it is and how much job satisfaction we get, but when there's a team of 9 tech writers, which is what we have today, it's a lot harder to make sure that nothing's dropping through the cracks between areas of ownership versus when there are just 3 and everyone knows each other and is talking all the time. So we wanted to create this model in a way that offered support, offered resources, made sure that we were catching everything we needed to catch, but without taking away that ownership that really kept people in their roles and allowed us to develop these experts. So we're using this pillar model, which this is a kind of lightly anonymized version of where senior and lead tech writers will own a set of areas, and they're really responsible for understanding the high-level strategy, who the major players are, who we can connect different tech writers to when we need a subject matter expert or something like that. And then individual product areas are still owned by tech writers who can operate as they like with this extra support as backup when they need it. So there's support on the high-level product, understanding what's going on in the larger org, and there's also the opportunity for coaching and feedback and support to help folks grow in their career and learn how to be really great tech writers. I'm really trying to offer younger tech writers on my team the support that I wished I had when I was a younger tech writer and had no clue what I was doing, to be quite honest. So we've walked through some big changes from a really scrappy startup where everyone does everything all the time to a really mature organization with high expectations for quality and a lot of support and structure that allows people to develop in their career and grow, and also allows us to get the docs right pretty consistently. It's been a big adjustment, and I'm not saying if you're in one of those startup-y organizations right now that you need to get rid of all the extraneous work. That would not be appropriate for a startup culture. But if you're hitting that point of burnout and overwhelm and don't feel like you can do your core work to the quality that you'd like to, you can start to slowly peel off those things that are extraneous. Figure out what your priorities are and slowly focus on those over time alongside your organization. So if you only take 3 things away from this talk today, number 1, tighten your focus in tandem with your organization as it scales. Number 2, prioritize retention. A team of experts is going to be so much more effective than a team with a lot of turnover where everyone's learning things all the time. So make sure that you're setting up your tech writing organization so that people want to stay and you can maintain that expertise. And number 3, relationship building is a really important skill for a tech writer. Tech writing isn't just about using your grammar effectively and following the templates and all of that. It's also about being connected to your organization, knowing who the right people are, knowing what connections to build. And so if you're a really great relationship builder, make sure you're taking credit for that because it makes the doc so much better, honestly. All right, that is all that I've got for you. Thank you for listening today. If you want to stay in touch, I'm on the Write the Doc Slack, or here's my contact information. And I also just want to say a huge thank you to Swapnil. He was my mentor. He's not here today, but he's watching. I don't know where the cameras are. He's watching online because he's in Australia and it's 3 a.m. So he'll watch later. But thank you so much. I couldn't have done this without you. And thank you all for being here.
quite enjoy the typeface you've chosen for Q&A. Looks future logo that we have here. Thank you, Elise. That's been incredible to see scale and then the journey from where you were in tech writing to where you are now. And I think that scale is going to be more important as businesses start up in tougher economic times to try to make the most out of the resources they have. And then when there are boons, when there are opportunities to use those resources to take advantage of things like building relationships and retention, those pay companies doing well in tough times even better when things are very good for folks.
Exactly.
So we'll hop into the questions that we have here. Philip has got a couple of thoughts here. So he mentioned hiring from other teams internally. It's like sales and support. Has this incurred any ire from leadership on those teams? Have such lateral trans we'll try it again. Have such lateral transfers been completely genial? Thank you, Philip. Woo, tongue twister today.
You know, we're lucky. They generally have. And I think especially for our support team, there is kind of an expectation of higher turnover in support compared to some other teams because you're working with, I worked in support, you're working with a lot of unhappy people, and sometimes that's pretty draining. And so it's actually really helpful to have an idea of something you can be working towards. And so it's actually advertised to our support team that this is a potential career move that 3 of the 9 tech writers have made, myself included. And so if you're in support and maybe starting to feel that burnout, this is something that you could try to work towards because our team is loves hiring support. We think they're so smart.
Yeah, and then kind of as a follow-up question from my perspective, are you involved in the hiring process for support? Do they get that opportunity to talk to documentation?
I have talked to people who are interested in it. I have not been on a hiring board yet, but I'm every time I get a calendar invite from a support rep, I'm yes, absolutely, I'll talk to you.
Wonderful. We've got another or something else inputted from someone in support here. This person's experience recruiting internal support folks for the docs team was that their product knowledge and customer empathy was great, but their writing was not as good. So did you encounter this, and have you had successful strategies to remediate?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be training people on one of these 2 things at least. If you hire an experienced tech writer who's external, you're gonna have to upskill them on your organization and the product and how it works. If you hire internally, you're doing the opposite. You're upskilling them on the writing process and on being an effective communicator in this specific environment. It is a different type of communication versus talking one-on-one with a customer. So it's a trade-off. You have to choose whether which variety of training you want to do, but they're both skills that people can learn.
Did you find that your experience from support helped empathize with improving people's writing a lot then?
Absolutely.
Just hey, I've been there.
Oh yeah.
Here we go. Yeah. Another question from the morning here. How do you monitor and measure quality?
Yeah, we keep track of CSAT, customer satisfaction. We keep track of ticket deflection rates, and this is an area where we're working on maturing. We're working on figuring out how to adjust our standards based on the different audiences that a particular doc is being read by. You can't expect the same CSAT score for a troubleshooting doc that people are going to when they're really frustrated versus a beginner how-to where someone's a little more open to learning and probably feels really excited to have some support along the way. So an area where we're trying to grow right now is figuring out how to set our metrics accurately, sort of aspire to the right goal based on the type of documentation. Did that answer your question? No?
We'll have a follow-up if we need to. Just in aspiring to the right goal, are you seeing it more as, here we can be a lot more objective with our setup?
Yeah. There's a big difference between saying okay, our goal is X number across the board, and then obviously not everything's going to meet that. Some stuff's going to wildly exceed it, some stuff's going to be lower. And so we want to track quality in a way that is thoughtful and actionable and figure out what the right goal is for each different piece of content so that we can actually actionably work towards it rather than just saying the goal feeling arbitrary and being able to explain away any misses or anything that goes above and beyond. Just sort of dismiss that without a lot of data.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
And then with that, you pivoting if leadership's saying we need to use these tools or
Yeah.
we need to have this kind of content delivered on this timeline, then you're accommodating for that and having different, objective key metrics
Exactly.
results.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we've got that question from leadership. Do you feel that they've been invested and involved from the get-go? Like what do you think your leadership has had in terms of supporting you and having
Yeah.
that drive?
I feel like our team has been kind of like set it and forget it from the highest levels of leadership. Like we've done a good enough job that they're not super invested in the nitty gritty, but also when we come and want like a big budget for like some enormous improvement, they're like, you're already doing fine. We're not that worried about you. We've got other priorities. So there are like pros and cons to having that level of involvement of leadership. Like I like the trust. I wish we could sometimes get a little more support for some of those big swings.
Well, have those big swings been requests for budget or additional hires and
Yeah,
I'm sure
mostly
that.
budget for like technology that we'd like to try out.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Do you have a specific example, something you're allowed to share, like technology you want to try out?
No, I
That's
wouldn't.
fair.
Sorry.
Absolutely. So this question here from 300 FAQs. Where did that number come from? Was that a support team? And then do you have a process for considering adding community FAQs to your docs?
We no longer add community FAQs. We've like let them own that now, and the support team can work with the community forum to create that content on their own. So we've totally handed off FAQs. We got to 300 not all at once, but over time. Like we started with probably a dozen, and then just kept getting requests and said yes to the request because it's. When you're in that like scrappy startup phase, often it takes less time to just create the content than to convince someone why it's not a good idea. That's like appropriate for the scrappy startup phase, but we needed to figure out how to mature. But we got to 300 truly organically just by saying yes to most requests.
I've seen that as a pattern for when I had worked with support teams that FAQs are like, we have one issue, we'll have one FAQ for that issue, and we'll put it in a big area. It can be a very easy like lift for everyone because it from their perspective it answers the question and we can move on and we can get forward. We can get more time to spend on other things.
Yeah, deceptively simple because
yeah,
then you've got to maintain them.
Right, and then someone else takes care of how it gets organized or how we can maintain it or update it that way. So it creates opportunities, if you will. So with the next question we have here, with an individual ownership model for documentation, do you have a plan for how to deal with if someone were to leave the company, like offboarding or leaver kind of situations?
Yes, that is a sort of additional element of this pillar model that I didn't want to dive into in the slides. But basically, we have the primary owner for every content area, and then within the pillar, everyone is a backup for someone else's. So every area has like 2 points of coverage, the primary person who owns it and then the secondary person who is just like paying enough attention that they know they can jump in if needed.
Yeah, and then kind of following up on that from my perspective, are you using a specific, like, this is a person who's the driver, maybe you have someone who's approving it, they're consulted and informed. Do you have, then they're assigned as like informed in that case and they're brought in on things as things ramp up?
Exactly.
And if someone's going on, a longer leave or vacation, we just make sure that those coverages happen, right?
Vacation is like a really good way to practice that actually because folks have to jump in like a couple of times a year. So they're staying up to date because they're like publishing or writing docs a handful of times a year in those areas.
And then kind of more of a follow-up for you in like a lead role, if you're out, do you delegate to folks that you're in charge with and like, hey, we've maybe got to have individuals in charge of different aspects of your job?
Yes, I'm actually on leave right now. I took a week back from my maternity leave to come and do this conference and like log on a little bit. So I'm about to go back on leave after. But I've got some really great people covering for me. We've sort of rearranged a little bit since this is more of an extended leave, but we were able to give a younger tech writer, but who's like got some experience and is like growing in her role. We were able to give her my responsibilities temporarily. I left her with so many pages of resources and support because I just didn't want to leave her hanging. But now she's getting that practice of leadership.
I think that's wonderfully empowering that you can do that for someone who maybe had been in your shoes a while ago. And also, as a manager, you're seeing the best in someone that you can help out and level them up. Wonderful. Let's get rid of that there. So yeah, In terms of like leadership here now, do you have any tips for how to ask leadership for when work is growing beyond what your team is able to do, and maybe perhaps beyond what you're able to manage?
I'm actually not a manager. I'm an IC in the lead level.
Oh, okay.
And so I've been so supported by my manager. This is not a tip. Like, you can't just have a great manager, but I've had a really great one who has done that for me.
What a fun space this
Yeah.
is. Just have a great manager
Yeah.
first.
Pro tip.
So, more questions about this poaching from sales here. Are the sales team, or are the folks on sales teams showing writing talent before having gone into sales? Or are you going for their tech knowledge and their ability to boot camp and bootstrap themselves into being better writers, regardless of whether or not it's in their job description?
Yeah, I mean, we evaluate writing at the hiring, like at the point of hiring, and so we wouldn't hire someone who we didn't at least think had some promise in their writing skills. So it's not that every sales rep would make a great tech writer, but it's that there absolutely are sales reps out there who like could make that pivot really effectively. And I think like even just the interest in tech writing is a good cue. Like if someone's in that and is like, I'm a little sick of hitting quota. I want to slow my life down. I want to slow my work down. Then that interest is maybe a good cue that they'll be engaged enough to like learn the skill of writing on the job.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, do you see that there's an opportunity for tech writers to potentially engage more with sales on the other end? Like, hey, maybe I don't necessarily have I'm going to do a presentation style of sales skills, but that's something that maybe they can learn from in sales that way. Do you see sort of a situation where they can maybe shadow each other? Is that something that might happen?
Absolutely. I think this is an area where my team could, like, I would love for us to continue to grow in this, but there's so much that we could learn from sales because they're working with the customers who are most, like, not at risk, but people who are like really thinking about it. And so they have a really clear understanding of what pain points are and what could maybe make someone like so frustrated that they wouldn't use the product. And so it's an opportunity for tech writers and for documentation to like those folks are like potentially an avatar for the customers who are maybe stuck in it and maybe a little frustrated. Like those people are going to give the quicker feedback about what's not working that you can then go and improve the experience for your existing customers with.
It's one of those avenues I think is a little under talked about with technical writing in that there is the business value of documentation being the first impression someone has of your product, of your experience.
Absolutely.
And when you can have technical writing and sales more enmeshed, that there's so much more opportunity for both teams to level up. And it's, again, easy to kind of lose sight of that. And the focus gets shifted in so many other areas. But if it's an interesting thing, why not give it a shot for like a day or two or something like that in your quarter? That could be an opportunity.
And sales is where like investment is happening during those downturns. Like the leadership wants sales to do better. And so if sales feels like you are a team they rely on, that's good like insulation for your team when economic times are hard.
Exactly. I was thinking now you could say, hey, if sales is converting this much percentage after our teams are meeting and our documentation is getting a lot more page views, like there's so many metrics that work together in a way that like maybe we haven't talked about enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry.
Oh, I agree. Sorry.
No, absolutely. So we have a question from Grace here. How did you get leadership buy-in on hiring marketing professionals to take this marketing staff or marketing content off of the plates from technical writers? So this person here, Grace, is struggling to get them to understand that it's a very different style of writing and it's a different set of skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely a different skill set. I think there is a lot of power in not doing things so that you can focus on your core work. Like maybe that is like the thing that you keep until like right before the deadline and you communicate really clearly, like I can't do this now because I have to focus on this like more important core part of my job. I'll do it right before the deadline. It's not going to be amazing. I'll get it done. That's going to start to be a motivator for those folks to like figure out, for leadership to realize, like if I want someone to invest in this, I need someone who's like, I need that to be central to their job. So this is a slow process. This won't happen quickly, but I think there are ways to sort of like nudge them along the path towards realizing that you need more resources.
Yeah, and nudge is probably the safest bet. You don't want to overextend your position there.
Yeah.
We've got a question about Zendesk here. Looks like Anonymous here was seeing your...
You are correct.
Yeah, seeing Zendesk for redirects as a solution. And here, do you have any more info about the alternate solution that your devs use?
Oh, not a clue, and I love it. I'm so glad to not be involved in that anymore.
Yeah, this person's been struggling with Zendesk redirects for years and has basically given up on this. Not sure if there's an answer for our Zendesk user here.
So sorry.
Yeah, again, sorry, Zendesk.
You can use our earlier solution, the very chaotic JavaScript.
We've got a couple more questions here. We'll top it off with these last two. Kristen is asking, how did you navigate shifting from the ownership model to a flattened ownership model? And the question here, how would you use that method if the full-time employees were on top of the strategy and contractors, sorry, let me read that in this order. How would you use that method if the full-time employees were the top of the strategy and contractors the flow down the line?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question. I think, yeah, my whole team are all full-time employees. They're all like, this is all of what they're doing. And so we're able to set a different set of expectations than you would for a contractor who might be like handling 6 different contracts and isn't that interested in your like team's culture or whatever. You know, I'm going to be honest, I don't have a lot of experience here. I have not worked with contractors directly, so I don't think I'm the right person to answer that question, but hopefully this sparks like a conversation among y'all. Someone smarter than me, like find this question answer, or ask her.
Not a problem. Last question before we have a couple of housekeeping announcements. Follow up about the metrics. What metrics do you and the team track for docs? Do you use any tools outside of Google Analytics to track them?
Yeah, we have Google Analytics and then several internally built tools. I have an insane spreadsheet that I'm very proud of, but I would not put in, like, I would not curse anyone else with having to build this. So we, yeah, just have some like internal scrappy tools that we've put together for some of our like team-specific metrics. We also use Tableau. Most of the primary metrics that we focus on are customer satisfaction, which is like the thumbs up, thumbs down, and ticket deflection. And then we have some other extraneous like SEO-related metrics, time on page, bounce rate, that we're looking at more at a high level to figure out if like our search is putting people in the right place, or if we're like, if we're like communicating things correctly at a high level.
Perfect. No.
Yeah.
Elise, thank you so much for your
Thank
time. It's
you.
been wonderful here.